Let's talk about the mystery of the Mayan calendar. It is not just dates or future predictions. It's a mix of precise astronomy, cultural beliefs, and smart numbers. How did they do this without our modern technology?
The Mayans were amazing at math. They used a base 20 number system and understood zero on their own. Their long count calendar is said to predict the world would end in 2012. It's proof of their knowledge of time cycles. They built their cities in line with the stars. Did they use lost tools or methods?
Scientifically, it's amazing how they used astronomy in their calendar system. The calendar is as accurate as today's. They tracked the sun, moon, and planets like Venus. But we must be careful. Myths can confuse our understanding. The world didn't end in 2012. It was the end of a cycle. Why do we believe in end-of-world stories?
This opens an interesting cultural idea. The Mayans saw time as cycles. Life has many ends and starts. Many fear the end. The Mayans might have welcomed it. People often fill unknowns with dramatic stories. Does how we see the Mayan calendar say more about our fears than about their predictions?
If the mystery is about understanding cycles, maybe we need to change how we see things. Are we too focused on literal meanings, missing the wisdom in old knowledge? We've talked about the Mayan calendar's secrets. Now let's learn about the civilization behind it. Why were the Mayans so good at astronomy and building?
The Mayans were real innovators. Their cities, like Palenque and Tikal, show a deep understanding of building without modern tools. For example, Mayan buildings often line up with stars. Did they know something about building that we don't?
The way they watched the stars was amazing. They didn't just look, they made a system that predicted movements. We are still trying to understand their accuracy. Was it just guesses, or did they understand space in a special way?
Besides their great buildings and astronomy, the Mayans had rich stories. Their writing tells tales of gods and the universe, both real and symbolic. Does this mix of story and science show a way of seeing the world that we have lost, where myth and fact are together?
If we look at the Mayans' way, are we too strict in keeping science and culture apart? Can their way teach us to think differently? The Mayans knew a lot about stars and had end times ideas. They saw cycles. How did stars affect their ideas? And what does this show about how they saw the world? What can this teach us about history?
Their star-related ideas are interesting. Look at the 2012 star alignment. It was not just about the world ending, it was about cycles changing. The Mayans saw these as times of big change. They probably had old tools, maybe like ancient sextants. Is it possible to have such exact knowledge without writing?
They mixed careful watching of stars with stories. We often see these as real predictions because of how we think about time now. Their star calculations were great, involving eclipses and planets moving. It's important to see these as their way to understand order in the universe, not as doom. Do we today put our fears on their symbols?
Yes, Ryan. The Mayans saw time as a mix of star movements and human events. Their ideas were about thought, not endings. In many cultures, stars showed changes in history. Was this to make people think about society? Do we often miss deeper meanings in old wisdom?
If their star watching was for thinking and new starts, are we making history too simple by only looking for causes and not thinking in cycles? How would seeing history as cycles change our ideas about historical change? Let's talk about how people see the Mayan calendar today. Why do end-of-world predictions interest us so much? Why was 2012 important here?
The idea of the world ending is interesting to many. The 2012 prediction was a mix of mistakes and media attention. People liked it because it fit with a larger story of fear and interest in end times. Was it just fear, or is there a forgotten event that made people believe this?
Our brains look for patterns and danger to keep us safe. This makes us imagine things like doomsday predictions. In 2012, people saw what they thought was there. What about today's views? Are we still led by old survival instincts?
Different cultures have end-of-world stories, often meaning change, not just destruction. The Mayan story might mean a new beginning in our minds. Do these stories show our wish for change? Do they make us feel better when things are unsure?
If these myths help us with our thoughts, Maybe we need to change how we see old calendars. Are we seeing deep wisdom as predictions and missing the lesson about change and new cycles? As we explored the Mayan calendar, we asked ourselves, are we misunderstanding old wisdom? The Mayans knew a lot about time and cycles, but are we telling our modern stories instead of theirs?
That's possible, Michelle. We see these systems as bad news because of our fears. The Mayans may have seen cycles as chances to start again, not as the end. Their buildings show they understood the stars well. Are we missing their viewpoint?
Yes, Guy. We often see patterns as dangers. Mayans knew astronomy to see natural cycles, not predict the end of the world. Maybe the question is, do we misunderstand by focusing on predictions and not on celebrating the order of the universe?
Also, what if we miss the cultural and spiritual wisdom in these systems? The Mayans saw time as cycles, showing life renews, not ends. This means they understood life and death well. Can we learn from how they balanced myth and reality?
Interesting points. If we focus too much on strict meanings, we might miss wider lessons in old wisdom. The real question is, do we miss lessons about change because we focus too much on end-of-the-world ideas?
We often only look at ancient knowledge on the surface. We could gain a lot from the Mayans' deep understanding, which we sometimes ignore as just stories. Can seeing their broad view give us new understanding today?
Yes, Guy. Science can confirm some of their knowledge, but it's important to add cultural context to our understanding. The Mayans didn't keep science and spirituality apart. What if this mix is the key to truly understanding them?
If we mix science, myth, and culture, we might find more wisdom. We often separate feelings and facts today. What if their wisdom shows a more connected view? How would this change our way of understanding things?
The Mayan calendar pushes us to think again about how we see cycles, asking us to look past the end-of-the-world ideas. Maybe this view can change how we see the past and future challenges. Are we ready to let old views help us with today's problems?